Hello, hello. Okay, you can hear me now. Hopefully, Bandit, you can hear me as well.
Yep, I hear you.
Awesome. So, hello everyone. Welcome. This is the first ever episode of Delusion, a podcast I always wanted to start. Talk about basically everything, everything in this world because, you know, once you have stuff, when things are well, I want to do just crazy things. And one of them is talking to some amazing people in this world. One of them being Bandit. So, everybody, I would like to give you guys a quick introduction of our today's guest. First, I would like to introduce and share the screen so people can see him. Okay, here, Bandit. So, Benedict, I want to give you guys a quick introduction. And first of all, Bandit, welcome. Finally, we get to talk after like months of knowing each other through stream and Twitch. So, a big welcome to you. How are you feeling?
Yeah, thanks.
Nice to see you.
Glad to be here.
Thank you so much. I want to share certain things with everyone as I was writing like the script and how things will go with this podcast, right? I was kind of getting emotional. It was like around 1 a.m. at night. I was thinking about this. I was so excited. And I wrote something, right? I was just thinking about these things like, and big reason, right? When I started streaming or the social media journey, I thought, what would be success like? What is the definition of success, And I'm glad to say I was wrong about this definition, right? Because, like, as a success, when people think who is a successful streamer, they think about, oh, the person making a lot of money, being their own boss, having the ad revenue going, right? Generating millions every year, right? And I was thinking the same, but I was wrong in a very good way because the thing was that actually in last couple of months, right? Because I started my streaming journey with Hackers Pub or Censored Hacker on YouTube was in December 1st. And the thing that actually motivated me the most is people like you, like basically you guys, the whole everyone in the community who show me love and affection and show me that I'm not alone in this journey and this hardship and are ready to support me. So a big thanks to you. And like the best part about this streaming journey has been not the money, but like actually talking to great people like you. There is Panda, Stimulus, Camby, Hyperion, and a lot of other people, right? And junior coder, like juniors who are like people who are younger than me, some who are like more experienced like you. So that makes the journey for me, right? And I feel like very happy I get to talk to you, and with this I'm able to share your experience with everyone. So thank you so much for coming, and yeah, hopefully you're ready for a bunch of questions by me.
Yeah, no problem.
See, let me make sure. Can you say something so I can make sure you other people can hear you? Make sure other people can hear you.
Yeah, testing.
Okay, sounds good. Hopefully everyone can hear it. Please give a thumbs up if you guys can hear it. And with that being said, welcome. With all the emotions put aside now, welcome to Delusion, episode 1, Feed Hackers and Friends, and our big special guest, Benedict. Probably like one of the best people I could have invited for episode 1. So if people who don't know who Bandit is aka David Rood. He has 2 decades of experience in cybersecurity industry with multiple contributions made to the one of the best hacking tool out there called Metasploit. And I would like to share something quickly with everyone. So I'll go here. So here, if you go on GitHub and search our guy Bandit, okay, one sec. I should have logged in before, right? Would have been. So this is Benedict, right? Guy has some really interesting projects all the time going on, and I was kind of like stalking him, I guess, almost when I was looking through his profile. Went into 2011, and guess what you guys see here? Metasploit. It's under Rapid 7 right now, but one of the best hacking tools out there in the world, used by many, and even it's such a good tool that the owner or the creator of this tool went to jail for making this. That's how good the tool was, and that's the level of people I'm talking to today with bannedit. And so bannedit, with that interesting start and introduction to Metasploit to whoever is new, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm David Rude, probably better well known as Bandit. I've been in the security industry for about 20 years now. Primarily, my focus has been on vulnerability research and exploit development. I would say I'm most well known for my work at Metasploit, which was quite a while ago, but lots of exploits, lots of auxiliary modules and host modules, and the big one that everybody really knows is MSF Venom. So I was the original author of MSF Venom when it came out originally. I'm also an avid war games player and CTF enthusiast, and I enjoy video games quite a bit.
That's amazing. Which video games do you love the most?
So I'm kind of an older person, so I kind of like Quake games, Quake 3, Quake Live.
Mm-hmm.
I like Overwatch. I like Apex Legends.
Nice.
PUBG.
Oh, nice.
Kind of
PUBG
games.
is fun.
Mostly first-person shooter games.
Nice, nice. I like PUBG too, man. That's some good COVID history there. That's how I spend my time. So interesting thing you said. So, to the people who don't know, can you explain what Metasploit is and how big it was?
Yeah. So Metasploit is a framework, and it's basically a bunch of tools and modules combined into a framework that's useful for penetration testing in general. So they have things like exploits, they have auxiliary modules,
Hello.
not necessarily exploits, but more like information gathering
Mm-hmm.
type modules, where you can do like enumeration and like information gathering. And then there's also like post modules, which are for post exploitation. So if you already have like a shell,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Nice. So it's like a basically to everyone. It's basically like a all-in-one hacking tool. And
Yeah,
if
it's kind of like the Swiss Army knife of like penetration testing tools.
nice, I love that idea. Swiss Army knife. And you mentioned you are like the original author of MSF Venom. So what exactly is MSF Venom and how you came up with that idea?
Well, I mean, the idea wasn't really mine as much as it was just something that was kind of in the pipeline at the time. So at the time, there was two tools, MSF payload and MSF encode. And so the idea there was that you would create a payload and then you would pipe the output of that payload from the MSF payload tool into the MSF encode tool to create your payloads with any kind of encoding. And so this was kind of like a slow process because each tool had to utilize an instance of the Metasploit framework, and I've ever loaded MSF console, but like it takes a while to load it because it has to load all the modules, I think. So now you're doing it twice.
Mm-hmm.
And so MSF Venom kind of came out of necessity to make this more efficient and also just combine all this functionality into like one tool rather than having two. So it's just a better
Nice.
experience for users.
I love it. Like, so basically making things efficient to a level that you can hack better, and you are like people.
Yeah, so it basically combines all the functionality of MSF payload and MSF encode all into one tool.
I love that. And you mentioned about war games. Like war games, aren't those the one where you are like basically hacking into each other's and like trying to stay put. Are those the ones, if I'm not wrong?
So war games are more along the line. Um, They'll be like a machine, sort of like Hack the Box. Think of like
Mm-hmm.
Hack the Box, but like where it's all exploitation based and it's all levels. So you go
Ah,
from one level to the next level. So you exploit level one, and then you get the user account for level one, and then
mm-hmm.
you use that user access to attack the level two level,
Got it.
and then you
Nice.
keep going through all the levels that way. So
Yeah.
you get the passwords for each account when you successfully exploit the vulnerabilities.
Nice. Got it. That's nice. That's pretty cool, actually. I need to look into those. Similar to Over the Wire, I believe, but like more other
Yeah,
than
yeah,
Bandit and stuff.
exactly. Over the Wire is a war game, so
Yeah.
they have a bunch of different ones. So Bandit is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also like some of the older ones that I used to play was like Vertex.
Oh, okay.
Um, I think Nebula is another one. It's been a while since I've actually played on Over the Wire, but
Mm-hmm.
Over the Wire definitely has some good ones.
Nice. That's amazing. I have to check these out, man. I'm just writing notes as we are going, so and it's nice on how I can reach your level. So I'm getting all the parts and like bits pieces. Okay. With that, right? Like, just quick thing. So, did you first heard about hacking and security, and what was your eureka moment? Like, oh, I want to do hacking for the rest of my life. Reason I'm saying that, I love asking this question because my hacking journey started. I was in grade 8 and I was playing this game called GTA Vice City. And there is like those codes you can type, cheat codes and stuff to increase your health or your money, like money you have and all those. So I was trying to
Yeah.
do that, and I typed something. I don't remember what, but the whole game ended in front of me. It was like watching a YouTube video with fast forward. I could see everything, how every single um, basically level was cleared, which was my kind of eureka moment. I was like, yo, what did I do right now? I want to do this for the rest of my life. And that was like in 8th grade. I was clear, no matter what I do right now, right? I have to do my ninth grade and all those things. Had no idea I will be in Canada, but I was like, I know I will end up in hacking. That's for sure. So what was your moments like?
Yeah, so for me, I actually got started with computers like at a fairly young age. And I started programming probably around like 7 or 8 years old, like in BASIC, like back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like how I got started with computers. But as far as like becoming interested in hacking in general, I'm not entirely sure what it was, but I remember um, just kind of like reading about hackers being able to do things like break into computers without login credentials, and I thought that was like pretty interesting. And it's like, how do you do that? So I kind of like dug into that, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, back then there wasn't a whole lot of information about exploitation and everything. So
Oh, I bet.
it took me a while, but like eventually, like I kind of like put all the pieces together and started learning about it.
Nice.
Um, the deeper I went, the more interested I got. So,
I love that. I love that. That's actually how it's interesting, right? Because like in our days, we have so many tools. We have YouTube, we have try hack me, hack the box. But in your days, it would be like so much harder and so much harder to not only just learn, but also explain your parents or anyone what you are doing. Like you can't just go and like, yeah, I'm a hacker, or like even today we can't just go and say, yeah, I'm an ethical hacker. People don't understand. But like back in those days, it would be even more worse.
yeah, so I mean, like the very first, I don't want to say it's the very first paper, but like the big paper about software vulnerabilities was FRAC issue 49, and it was called "Smashing the Stack for Fun and Profit."
Issue for.
And this was released in what was it? November 1996.
Oh wow, I was not even born then.
Yeah, so this is. I mean, back when I started, there wasn't a whole lot of information out there, and I think like a lot of it was just e-zines like Frack, and there was other ones out there at the time. There was Line Noise was another one. And then there was just stuff like Rhino 9, like these little hacker groups and things like that were on IRC back in the day. And
Interesting.
that was kind of how you went about learning all this stuff.
That's amazing. It's reminded me of the IRC. Like I was talking to what's his name, Golem Fund. I don't know if you know him, the original people OG of Shadow Brokers or Shadow Breakers. That's the name of the dark web groups. He mentioned, and I asked him like, "Hey, what is the best way to learn? Like with the knowledge and like talk to people." Similar idea like IRC, but like it's similar to IRC, but Signal and Telegram. Those were his answers. Like go to Telegram, find some good groups, and just get into it. That's where you will learn. And I think you're right. You're right. Like the methods. I think just the platforms have changed. The methods have not. Right. You still need to talk to people and learn from them.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of like groups out there that are focused on these areas these days. Like I think a lot of it has moved to Discord. There's a lot of Discord groups and everything as well.
Oh yeah. 100%. It's interesting how Discord and like all these are doing such a big thing. This stuff, amazing.
Yeah, it's all basically like replacing IRC the way it used to be.
Yep. Okay, and now let's move to the next question, which I'm actually interested about, and I wanted like people to teach people like this thing from your example, right? That can you talk about your school or college experience and like how that changed you? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
so
I'm sorry to bring this up.
I learned a lot of my skills like early on. Like I said, like I started with computers pretty early. And a lot of what I know about security taught. I taught myself how to program in like various different languages like C, C++, assembly language, because I needed it for exploit development. Um, so I kind of self-taught myself a lot of that. Um, and back when I was going to school, none of this stuff was really taught. Um, you would have to go to college probably to like even learn like a language like C++ or assembly language. Back when I started. And even then, there was no real talk about like how to apply that stuff to, software security. There was no like education the way it is now in terms of like security. Back when I was learning all this stuff, it was all computer science and computer engineering, and those courses are still there today, but there's no education like there is today where it's specifically focused on computer security or software security.
Gotcha.
So I actually went to college for about 1 year, and I wouldn't recommend, that you follow in my footsteps on this, but like I dropped out after the 1 year, primarily because I wasn't learning anything. I was going and I was going to these classes more or less just to kind of get the paper to say like, oh, I know this stuff.
Yep.
And I kind of felt like I already did know this stuff, so if I have to prove it to you, I'll prove it to you, but I don't need to, spend all this money on college. I already know all this stuff.
Makes sense. Which is very
I would
interesting.
definitely not recommend like following in my footsteps. I think the world's kind of changed a little bit these days. I definitely think college education is a valuable thing. And there's definitely times when I wish, I hadn't dropped out of college because not because I would learn a whole lot of things that I don't already know. It's more or less some of the things that I don't know that I would have learned through college, maybe not directly, but like indirectly.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you, especially the part where you mentioned like directly versus indirectly, because I feel, and I have talked to a bunch of people, right? And they mentioned that it's not at the university, like in the classes, they learned specific thing or they did specific school project that helped them. What the biggest, I think, take to anyone who asks me like whether they should go to college or not, I'm like, go to a college, but take your time. Instead of four, take five. But make sure you, first of all, don't go in super depth that you are like just worried about money all the time. Go slow, but make sure you are part of the clubs, because and so, some clubs which are actually doing something, like building an application or solving some problem or just taking part in competitions and hackathons, because that's where the real learning will be. And like nowhere, like no company you can ever work for or anywhere, you will have that experience. That's just my always I give anybody advice about colleges and stuff. Take it slow, but 100% go for clubs and build a good network there.
Yeah, and I can definitely attest to the idea that it might not be like the courses in your major that are the important. It might be the ones that you're more your general education, like your math and English and other things that are important as well.
Yeah, 100%. Like maths and English are interesting subjects to learn. I hated English. um, yeah, like I hated English, man. Like honestly, like there are certain courses which I was like, you can like, I'm just taking them just because it's needed, or you could put a bullet in my head and I would not take it. It's like
Yeah,
that,
but
but
I think all those courses are, they're important in some ways. Like you might not right away get a whole lot of benefit from it, but I think like, down the road, those things become important, especially when you're building a career.
yeah.
Um, and you have to write reports and you have to, do all these things that are related to those skills.
100%. I agree, 100%. And even like with this is funny because like in English, when I took English, right, I was taking like this English. I took the wrong class, which was the most interesting part. My first semester, because education in Canada is way different than education in India. Because in you don't have to take courses, and the colleges in India, they are not like you have engineering colleges, you have commerce colleges, you have medical colleges, right? It's all medical courses there. Here you have universities and people have the freedom to learn whatever they want, which I think is a very valuable thing. And I took an English course accidentally, which was about like screenplay writing and like novel and poet, like understanding English, but like from an artistic point of view. And I will say like that actually has helped me a lot. Probably one of the most the best course I ever took at university. One of them, if I say top three or top five, it would be there all the time, because even with these, right, able to express myself and write good questions or write like things, notes like that helped me so well. So yeah, I agree with that. Like those courses are important and you just don't know how they will connect, right? You can't look in the future,
Yeah,
you can only look in the past.
yeah, exactly.
Love that. So now, this is a very important question I want to ask, right? You mentioned you are you dropped out of college in your first year, right? How was the market then, and how did you got your foot inside the door? Because I did 4 year in. I'll give you my example, right? 4 years Bachelor of Science Computer Science degree, right? Minors in business or business. How to say it? MIS, Management of Information Systems. My minors did good projects which I liked, I think I loved, and had an internship under my belt. But still, I struggled, and I'm still struggling to get a foot inside the door with the cybersecurity companies. So, how did you did that, and how was the market then? I think it was way harder than compared to now, and like how you did that.
Well, I think you gotta look at it from the perspective of like this was 20 years ago. Um, and I think the security industry 20 years ago was a lot different than it is now. Um, so I actually think the job market back then was actually kind of booming. The problem was, I think there was, you know, nowadays they're talking about like talent shortages in the security industry, but like I think back then there was real talent shortages because, like I was saying, like there was no education for this stuff. You had to learn it on your own
Yeah.
for the most part. So back when I got started, so I dropped out of college in 2004. So I went for 1 year and then I stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And I it took me a little bit of time to get my foot in the door, but what I did is I played a lot of war games back then,
Mm-hmm.
and I socialized in a lot of the different like hacker communities. And I think like this is a big tip for anybody that's trying to get into the security industry is to socialize, like
Mm-hmm.
get involved in the communities. Um, you know, whether that's just playing in the war games or you know actively building war games, like something along those lines, like building CTFs,
Mm-hmm.
uh, participating by um, you know submitting CTF challenges, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
might be. Be an active part of these communities. And you never know how it'll pay off because for me, the way it started was I played these war games and I helped out in the community, like people that got stuck or whatever like that. They would ask questions and I would try to be as helpful as I could. And,
Mm-hmm.
eventually I got like pretty decent at war games. And so I hung out on the Over the Wire IRC channel back then. And it wasn't called Over the Wire back then, it was called Pull the Plug.
Pull the plug.
And it eventually got renamed to Over the Wire.
Mm-hmm.
But someone I knew from that community, they had a job opening, and they were asking if anybody was interested in it, and so I jumped at it.
Nice.
And I guess I got lucky, but I think there's a lot of benefit to networking and socializing, like in this industry,
Love that.
particularly.
Love that. I think, yeah, and the best part I think about this industry is it's not like other industries where people are hiding their stuff or hiding their knowledge so other people don't get advantage. Here in hacking, we have like, yo, you need help? Let me help you and let me give you something extra tips, which I think like the best part about our cybersecurity community. I love.
Yeah, I definitely think that there are some murky areas where like some people will hold on to things for a
Mm-hmm.
while before they'll share it. Um, but I think it's pretty rare.
Yep.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
think people are more than willing to like share their knowledge in this industry.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, I agree. I agree, 100%. Now, like, so with that, right? Like, so as we are talking about college and everything, getting a job, right? Let's say if you are given a checklist, right? If you are given a chance, right? Let's say if you are given a chance to give a checklist to young Bennett, young David Rood, who is in high school or college as of today, right? And want to enter in the cybersecurity industry, what things will be part of that checklist?
Um, well, I think the first thing is just like pick a subfield because the security industry itself is pretty large. Like when you
Mm-hmm.
say cybersecurity, like there's a lot of different things that fall under that term. You have the whole defensive side, you have
Mm-hmm.
offensive, and then under each one of those umbrellas, like a lot of different subfields. So I
Yep.
think you really have to pick like where your interests are. I
Love
think
that.
that's the very first thing. And then once you do pick that, you have to learn everything you can about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I would also recommend, looking at job posts for like your dream job.
Mm-hmm.
Go look at that. See what employers are looking for. What skills are they asking people to bring?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then another thing I would say is set up a home lab. Experiment with the things that you're interested in. Try to build these skills on your own. Like you don't necessarily have to have a job already with like these commercial products and like learn everything about these products to like understand the concepts that these commercial products have because there's usually open source alternatives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Like building your own home labs. Like don't wait for the opportunities because majority of the things you will learn, you can just learn at home for like not
Yeah.
even, I will say,
And
one
I
tenth of the
think the
price.
concepts are more important than the actual like commercial product itself.
Yeah. It's the products change, not the concepts. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. And then like now with we are talking about industry, right? Like with your profession life, right? You have worked with like big players, like very very well reputed names in the industry, like Rapid 7, Metasploit, right? Dell, Xerox, Intuit, with your latest experience, and others. How is that like your professional journey has been with them, like the big players specifically?
I would say a lot of the big players, they still try to act kind of like startups, even though like in a lot of ways they're not. But like they try to be like that startup culture, like small groups, for the most part. Um, and I would say like I've learned a lot like throughout like my professional journey, which definitely includes like some of those big name players. But I've also spent time at like some of the smaller like startups and startups that were just recently purchased, that sort of thing.
Love that. So, what is the difference? Like, because you mentioned you have worked with big players and small players, right? What is the biggest difference you have found with them, like between those two?
So I think like the biggest difference is usually culture. I think some of the smaller companies tend to have better culture. Um, it's hard for me to kind of quantify like why I feel that way, but I think like smaller companies tend to have like a bit more fun, focus on like team building, and that sort of thing. Whereas like when you get into like the bigger enterprise companies, like they're already so large, and like a lot of these teams, and they're you know not
Everybody's
everybody
competing.
knows each other very well and things like that, and it just changes the culture. And then a lot of times, like with these big enterprise companies, there's a lot of rules and there's a lot of like this is how we do things, and like a lot of red tape and everything to like do certain things that you would not have such a problem doing at like a smaller company.
Interesting. And where do you find like more like because you worked both the places and with the current job market, right? As with remote work and all these things going on, person can like go both ways, right? They can learn things everywhere. So, according to you, what where you find more happiness and learning opportunities, and if somebody is going for or got a job offer from both the companies, medium, small, or let's say versus large, where they should go for?
I think it kind of depends on your own ability to take risk. Like how risk evasive are you? Um, so I think me personally, I enjoy smaller companies. Like I said, like I think they have a better culture a lot of times, and I think it's just easier to kind of get things done when you need to. You don't have to go through kind of like the bureaucracy of like a bigger enterprise to like you know make the changes that you want to make sometimes.
Yep, I love that.
Um, and so I think like it really boils down to your ability to take risks and like because I mean there is some risk with like a smaller company, right? Like you have to make sure that company is going to be stable. You might go in there, you might work for 6 months, and then they close the doors, and you don't know.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend research about that company like beforehand, like how long have they been around, do they have funding, do they not have funding, like, and if they're a small enough company and you're talking to executive level of that company when you're interviewing, ask them,
Yeah.
like, prove to me that this company is going to be stable. I actually had that experience before. um, I was working at iDefense,
Mm-hmm.
and there was this small startup company, and they only had like, I want to say they had maybe like 10 employees,
Mm-hmm.
and I was interviewing with them, and I got a job offer, and I kind of like turned them down at first because I was like, I don't know, you guys are small, and they were actually in the process of like moving office,
I see.
and so like they were in this sort of like temporary office, plastic tables and things like that. And so like my impression of
Costco.
them at first was like not like really good, but then like I talked to the guy that I was interviewing with, the CTO, and he kind of you know answered all my questions and made me feel more comfortable about it, and so I went with it.
Love that. I love that. Like, I think that there's the beautiful thing in that whole discussion is there is no harm in asking. I feel like that is one of the things I love about like questions. There is no harm in asking. Like, just ask the person. If they want to answer, they will say yeah. If they want to answer, they will give you the answer. If they don't, they will say, hey, no, I don't want to answer this. But at least you will not have regret that, hey, I didn't ask that question, and you can just go home peacefully. At least that will be the best thing. At least.
Yeah. Another funny aspect of that story is that company that I went to work for,
Yeah.
they went and got acquired by Accenture,
Oh,
and
okay.
then Accenture went and acquired the company that I left for that company.
Ah, that's amazing. So wherever you go, like a century is just coming back at you.
Yeah, it was like my old colleagues and everything like ended up at the same job as me anyway.
I love that. So they were like, "Hey, buddy, what's up?" They were pretty much like, "Yo, where did you go?" Love that. I
Yeah.
love that. That's so fun. And let me ask you this another interesting question. I love. I was thinking very hardly about with cybersecurity, right? I believe because you have 2 decades of experience in this industry, right? With cybersecurity, I believe it is the best and the worst industry in some aspects, right? Pretty heavy aspects. Like best because it is like problem solving. It's like you are solving a puzzle every day, and it just keeps you going, right? And it's nothing. There is nothing like this because even when I've done my 8 hours of development job every day, and I'm done with a couple of other things. I'm still motivated to come solve a problem at the end of the day and do streaming. It's amazing, and the community we have. I'm so blessed that cybersecurity community is so good. Like with you guys, like you, there's so many good Discord channels, and another great part about cybersecurity is that you get to see the world from a different angle because you know so many more things which a layman doesn't, right? A common man doesn't. So you see the truth versus like the worst part because security is not any company's, I believe, priority. Like there is no company I can name which will be like, oh, security is our number one priority. It's always sales and development, right? So there are those two aspects. So how do you dealt with these ups and downs and these aspects over the last 2 decades?
Um. So yeah, like I agree that the cybersecurity like industry itself like is amazing. Like there's a lot of amazing jobs and a lot of amazing like opportunities. There's a lot of things to learn, and like it's the kind of field where like the more you know, the better you are
Mm-hmm.
um, at what you do. Um, but I think over time, like the industry has changed a lot. I think when I first got started, it was worse than
It
than
is today.
kind of where what you think even.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first got started, security industry was a lot smaller than it is now. So I actually prior to this, I looked up a stat. DEF CON
Yeah.
back in 2006 had about 7,000 attendees. And
Wow.
since 2019, DEF CON has then had over 30,000 attendees.
Amazing.
So, I mean, just that alone kind of gives you an idea of like growth there has been like in the security industry in that short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Thirty
and I think
thousand.
like yeah,
30.
over 30.
It's like a university in itself at that point.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So, and another thing to think about is just how many security conferences. Like there didn't used to be that many.
Yeah.
There's a lot more than there used to be. So definitely like the security industry as a whole.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think like back when I started, a lot of companies really didn't have an idea about it. And some companies even took like hostile approaches towards vulnerability researchers.
Oh
There were
yeah.
companies that would there were companies that would threaten people with lawsuits and things like that, like when they would report vulnerabilities to them.
Yep.
So like they didn't care about security back then. It was or like you're doing something and making us look bad,
Yeah.
and we don't like it. But I think like times have kind of changed. Um, I think companies are a lot more aware of security.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not they prioritize it as like a major priority is like another. Um, but I think companies have gotten a lot better about it.
Mm-hmm.
I still think, and a lot of people have said this in the past, is that you'll often see companies get breached, and
Yep.
then that's when the light switch turns on and budget and funding. Um, and that's kind of like what happens, right?
100%. That's so
Um,
interesting. Sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking because I know we are almost up with time. I was just thinking like you are so much right about like the approach how the companies used to go because earlier it was even the best example is Microsoft. And I think the Microsoft biggest change in Microsoft's security posture and security, um, the approach towards security culture in the industry has changed since Satya Nadella took over, right? Because before that, Bill Gates and Steve both were like, we hate hackers who is trying to hack into our system. They hated open source too, but since Satya Nadella took off, like the Microsoft has reached its where it is now with like it's actually the world's most valuable company currently, beating Nvidia and Apple.
Yeah, and so I think yeah, that's a good example, and I think Microsoft. I would say Microsoft is probably one of the leaders in terms of like exploit mitigations like these
Hmm.
days.
Yeah.
Um, they have a ton of attack surface in general, like in their software, but they have a lot of some of the best like exploit mitigations as well.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I think once they get to a point where like they can balance like out the attack surface with the mitigations that they have, like they'll be in really good shape.
Yeah.
I think they've made a lot of strides over the past 20 years, like to get where they are right now, and I think they're definitely leading the way with exploit mitigations.
100%. With their like, so with the when I did this, I just wanted to learn their security system. Like a lot of people talk about their AZ 500 right certification in cybersecurity. I was like, you know what? I want to check this. I really, really want to see why everybody love this security like software, Microsoft Defender 365 and like AZ 500. I did a call with someone in Microsoft. I said, "Yeah, I'm starting a new company. We want to like see how their system is," and got like a free access for a month. Not going to lie, I was blown away by how easy it was to use for some a first timer, right? Like me, I'm not a fast learner. I take my time. Some things take me like even like just simple concept like object and classes took me 2 years to understand, right? So you can tell like my some it just clicks whenever it has to click for me. But that software I could easily play through. They had playbooks, they had manuals, and so many things. I was like, I can see that they have put such a work in last 1 decade that it has changed the game so much for them in such a good way for Microsoft itself. I loved it.
Yeah, I think they've really done a lot of good work in terms of mitigations.
Yeah. And Ben, I know you have to go. Can I ask one really small question regarding ups and downs, which I think a lot of people want to hear?
Okay.
With the AI taking over, right? Of course, that is coming. AI, we have to talk about AI and hacking. With AI coming, right? With AI taking over so many industries, including security industry in so many ways. We had some AI before. AI became like a cool thing, I believe. Because AI became a cool thing, I will say, in like last 5 years, right? But security industry saw AI, let's say around 2014-15, when AI, that's Panda right there, loves AI. But AI took over with like, signature and behavior related antivirus systems and like with the firewalls and stuff. So how do you see like AI changing the landscape of cybersecurity industry?
Yeah, so I think AI has played a big role and like a lot of big impact in terms of um, exactly what you're talking about, like signature-based detections turning into like more machine learning models, and there's a lot of companies that have been working on AI and machine learning products for years now,
Yep.
and they're coming out. I think Microsoft even has some, like I think it's called ASA, one of them.
What's the name, sorry?
But basically, like detecting anomalies, like on the
Uh,
network and on the endpoint,
mm-hmm.
stuff like that. Like I think AI has had a huge impact in that sort of stuff.
Love
But
that.
I think for that stuff to be really effective, I think you need more than just one data point. I think
Mm-hmm.
you can't really do just network anomaly detection. I think you need to do network and endpoint anomaly like together to like be the most effective
Mm-hmm.
with that sort of stuff. Um, because I mean AI is prone to errors, and like you don't want like a bunch of anomalies coming in.
Yeah.
That stuff. It's the same problem you have today with like seams and stuff like that and socks.
Oh yeah, because that's the
You know, if
reason. Sorry.
you're just getting overwhelmed with like, oh, look at this thing, like it's not helping you.
Oh yeah, like those false
So you
positive.
need correlation, and I
Mm-hmm.
think the best way to do that is to have something on the endpoint and looking at the network.
Yeah. 100%. That's I think where the whole governance part of AI is and all those things
Yeah,
people need to like work towards. And I believe like with all the buzz going around with the AI, it's still at least 5-6 years away. I'm not expert. I don't know how things fast can develop, but I will say what how much it has developed in last couple of years versus actually solving the problem and having a buzz. I still feel like at least 5-10 years away, minimum five, to like get rid of these problems because there's too much data right now with everything, and that's a big problem.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you so much, Bandit.
So,
Sorry, yeah.
well, I wanted to bring up another thing about AI real quick.
Yes,
Just
please.
so personally, like I'm not a huge fan of like in the way that we use them right now. I think one thing that we do is we tend to utilize LLMs and end up relying on them too much. And I think it starts changing like how we, um, I think, and once we change how we need to really like ask ourselves better or not. And I think like for a lot of people, like that's like a personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Kind of depends on how you learn now. For me personally, like, going
So,
down the rabbit holes of like other things that are related to what I'm researching and about that stuff, and like with AI,
mm-hmm.
LLMs, like I think it becomes a little bit harder to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think like my big fear about AI in general is just like people
Mm-hmm.
rely too much on it, and you become complacent and you feel like, oh, I don't have to really learn anything. Ask the LLM and it's going to tell me the answer.
Yeah, no, 100%. People are replacing their creativity, or they think they will get away by replacing their creativity with the LLM models. but they don't realize like they are just, it's a temporary, it's like a temporary pain and forever glory versus permanent pain, where like just for temporary pleasure. I think people, a lot of them are trading for temporary pleasure to gain um, a full permanent damage to their brain. Same with like how social media impacted with TikTok and stuff. Like people are like, oh, this is fun. This is like, it won't harm much. But like now, if you see the whole Gen Z generation and everybody like have such a small attention span all of a sudden. But we saw it happening since COVID, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's not to say that LLMs aren't useful. They're not powerful. Like, I'm not saying that. We need to be mindful of how we use them and how we depend on them.
Yep.
And I
100%.
think that will play a role in security in the future. We have a bunch of people just sitting here vibe coding, generating like all this code.
Vibe
that,
code.
All there's vulnerable code out there, and these LLMs are learning from vulnerable code, and so the code that they're going to produce is also going to in
Yeah.
some ways. And so it takes an experienced developer to actually do that stuff and pick out like the problems.
Yes. Love that. Yep. 100%. I 100% concur to it. Just loved it. Loved it. But yeah, it's hitting the clock for 9 p.m. EST, 6 p.m. PST. So thank you so much, bannedit, for joining us today. For everyone who is listening, we have part 2 of this tomorrow, where I have a lot more questions, specifically more towards the AI industry and some of the work done by bannedit, which were I kind of not published at some places, but now he can talk about those. So with that, hold tight, everybody. And thank you, big thanks to bannedit for joining us today. And please check out his LinkedIn and his Twitter. I'm going to post the links. Till then, thank you so much, bannedit, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And see you tomorrow, like usual. Thank you so much, bannedit. Have a good one. Bye. Bye.